The issuance of SDRs was a good step towards dealing with the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, especially for the most vulnerable. The $650 billion that was issued actually was a good step, but it has also exposed the inequalities that exist in our global financial architecture, in the sense that majority of these resources went to where they are not needed, and those who needed them most actually got peanuts. It's scandalous that Africa got only $33.8 billion compared to US, which got $113 billion. This shows that the International Monetary Fund's quota system is a flawed system that continues to perpetuate inequality and needs to be transformed, if not overhauled, so that international financial institutions benefit the poor and the most vulnerable. But the $33 billion was an additional resources to the continent, and how they're utilized at the national level was also important. These resources were to actually cushion the most vulnerable, those who are being impacted most by the pandemic, and therefore how governments spent these resources was really important. The transparency in the allocation, the transparency in the usage of these resources was really, really critical to ensure that they benefit those who needed the most. The marginalized communities, our nurses who are on the front line of the pandemic, who needed to get vaccinated. 1 year later, actually, Africa it's only 10 countries on the whole continent that has now achieved 100% vaccination of its nurses. So you can imagine how these resources were being used. And it speaks to the issues that we've been dealing with all through. We've been talking about a flawed international system that allocates resources to the already rich, and a lack of accountability in how we utilize resources, but also how decisions are actually made. There is an opportunity to redress this, particularly for the IMF. The upcoming IMF quota system review should reflect the inequalities that exist and the realities, the current realities that we're dealing with. Africa is dealing with the triple crisis, the climate crisis, the COVID pandemic, and now the impacts of the Russia-Ukraine war that is making majority of the people on our continent go hungry. You know, we're seeing the numbers, we're seeing whenever you switch on your TV, you see animals dying actually, and people have no food to eat. You know, this needs to be addressed, and the allocation of resources should reflect these particular realities. Thank you.